Hi, my name is Michael Omole, and my black is transnational.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to My Black is Transnational. And I have on here my boy, special guest jumping on the show. We're going to have a great conversation about money management um, based off of his book. So, soon to be renowned author, Michael Omole, representing U of I, representing Chicago, our fellow Nigerian per usual.
Yep.
On the show, got my bro here with me, and it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for jumping on the show, man. And
Of
we'll
course.
get into introductions and all that stuff. But I first just want to know how you doing.
Man, I'm good, man. I'm good. Being in the city back in and moved back from the burbs.
Mm,
I was originally up north with it and then a couple years out of school and then moved back home to kind of save some money. And my mom had some like health issues.
mm,
So finally I saved up enough, went through this program called NACA, and they put me through
wow.
the rigorous long process, but finally got my joint and saved up, bought my first condo. And yeah, I've been in the city for about 2 months.
Ooh, congratulations, man! Like
Appreciate that.
on the condo, being on the ownership, man. Just continue to build, and so we're gonna even get into all of that, right? We're talking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
building wealth and accruing all of that. But of course, before we get into like the nitty gritty, what we're gonna talk about your book. Of course, we'll chop it up about your experience, and I know you do the sports thing, so we're gonna get into that a little bit, of
You
course.
know, for sure.
And so, but first, I just want you to introduce yourself, of course, who you are, your cultural background, and all of that. I just give you the floor for that.
Yeah, so yeah, Michael Omole, born and raised here in Chicago land. So if y'all are from Chicago, I'm not from Chicago. I am from the south suburbs. So um grew up in Harvey and then we moved a little bit south to Matson and then spent my time out there and then we went to U of I together, me and Kels. I studied economics, graduated class of 2015. A little bit back myself. I'm just a normal dude, but like to get along with everybody, first generation Nigerian,
Yeah.
kind of indulge in both cultures, black and African culture, Nigerian specifically, and just a person who's cool and just like to get along with people.
Yeah, well, that makes you the perfect person for this podcast.
Yeah, yeah,
First, I mean, people first generation Nigerian, at least from my end, we call y'all second generation, but like, cause like the children of African immigrants. But like, yeah, and so I want to be able to discuss how you navigate both worlds. So being, what I like jokingly call a Nigerian. Um, First of all, Harvey World, like,
yeah. Sandberg for the first to
okay,
third grade. All my brothers and sisters went to Thornton. Well, one brother went
wow.
to Red South, but yeah, like
Yeah,
friends
y'all was in the
for the
wild, like
yeah,
man.
yeah, yeah.
So I live in the suburbs now. I'm a city boy that now lives in the suburbs because of my family,
Hmm.
and so I didn't understand the dynamics as to like. I mean, I knew the burbs, but
Hmm.
because I was a city, went school, CPS. You know what I'm saying? And so I didn't understand when my wife and I were looking for places
Hmm.
burbs, right? We in like Flossmoor area, God bless,
God
right?
bless.
You know what I'm saying? But before that, we was looking at like Rich South, and we was looking at these places for the schools because of our
Right, right.
kids.
Hmm.
And so school district was important. And so I was talking to some people and I was like, yeah, we're looking at some of these places like Rich. And he was like, yo,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
people were
And
just like, hey, breathe easy. I didn't
yeah,
understand the dynamics of what's really happening in some of these places in the Chicagoland area.
yeah, and how it was when we was growing up was I don't think I really just understood the environment I was going. It was just like kids, hanging out. So
Yeah.
when I got older, it was like, oh, I was in an environment that was a little bit more dangerous than other
And
South
you didn't even
suburbs,
know
and
it.
you don't even know. So I
Yeah.
grew up so my career was actually in South Holland, but I went to school in Harvey, right
Mhm.
across from this place called Riverside, and then my other
Yeah.
family was in Dalton. So it was
Yep.
Dalton, South Holland, Phoenix, and Harvey, just rotating when I was every weekend,
Yeah.
But school, friends, and then just like my brothers and sisters was in Harvey a lot, so
Mhm.
that's where where I grew up a lot. So it was cool.
So,
And then we went a little bit more south to Matson. And it was just even when I first moved out there, I was like, man,
right.
everybody's so nice and like it's different here. But then you just adapt. You're like, oh, this is just normal. But like going out to like Dalton every weekend because my mom, one of my first cousins is from over there. That's where we spend all the birthdays. It was
Uh,
just more fun over there going to the courts, being around kids our age. That was a little bit more, I would say, gutter. So our
mhm.
family is a little a little bit more like that. So it's been cool. It was cool to kind of be indulged in both environments. And we can get into like my family dynamic, to kind of being Nigerian and the black thing too. But yeah,
Talk
we
about
always
it
just
right
been around.
now.
Yeah.
Jump
So
in it right now. Like, what was that? Because that's the question I was going to ask you. Was like, explain like what that experience was like growing. What was the influence of your African like cultural upbringing? What was that like?
So it was a very African household, even though that's the only thing that was probably missing was like Yoruba. Like my mom used to be like, "Go get me kokoro." So it was like words like dipped in out. I know like, um, bad words. I would say
Yeah,
like
yeah.
stuff like that, but not really like full on Yoruba. But like outside of that, all my friends was black. I was like the only African outside of one other kid. Her name was Omatayo. She was just into the books. So like
Crazy.
church or in the house, and even the church dynamic was we switched later on. It was one of those just with black people all the time, and it was cool. And then but I always loved being Nigerian. I never hid from it. I was the African. All my friends know how to spell my middle name because I was like real proud, like, yeah, I'm Nigerian. So it's Uluwashishio. And it was just one of those things that made me unique. So but yeah, no one treated me differently. It just wasn't that hazing, just kind of made me have tough skin, African booty scratcher and all that. But I used to come back with jokes as well, so I just thought it was normal. And then you start coming to like high school, and you see some more kids, and we ain't really rock like that, but we knew each other, like because my friends was my friends, regardless if it was Nigerian. It wasn't until like college when I saw this communal aspect. I was like, oh, it's a lot of Nigerians out here, and we got like similar backgrounds.
Yeah.
And even from the south suburbs, I think a lot of Nigerians really rock with each other too. So my cousin Wale and Tahib and like some other people, we just all used to see each other, and then we all like came back together like in college, and then we all been cool ever since.
Yeah. Yeah. So that idea, right? I feel like everybody been called African booty scratcher at some point. And like, but what was it for you as far as like how did your parents play a role as far as how comfortable you were interacting with Black Americans here? Like, when you was in the burbs, or were you told like, oh, don't mess with them? Like, what was your experience like as far as interacting with African Americans?
Yeah, it was always one of those like. So I always had one of those things like this. My mom used to emphasize your family or your friends. So me and my cousins are like really close. But like outside of school, nobody used to like really come to the house anyway. So my mom didn't really know my friends outside of the house.
Right.
So she would always say like, just don't get influenced, or like be doing what they doing. But like I always had a good head on my shoulder. So just like, even if I see some wildness, I was just like, yeah, I'm not really gonna, get affected or swayed that way. Maybe like one time I learned like a gang handstand. My brothers, they put the pieces on me. That was probably like only thing. That's like third grade. But other than that, not really. It was just one of those. She was just like, hang with your cousins, hang with your brothers. I'm a last born of 5, so my friends was always like kept at a distance. But like I never like looked down or anything like that. It was just like they don't get too close because I got my family. I'm still like that, but I'm like cool with everybody. But my peoples is still like my family. So regardless of what she was saying, it was I don't think it was looked into like a negative stereotype at all in terms of how I treated my Black friends. It was just one of those things of I move differently and I can operate in both circles.
Yeah. And I mean, what's interesting about that, when I hear many people that I've interviewed over the time, we have like, I mean, some people have had it more on like the more like straightforward end, where your parents are like, don't talk to these people, right? And
Yeah.
But we regardless of it, we live like 2 different lives.
Chameleons.
In the crib.
Yeah.
Chameleons. Exactly.
Yeah.
Perfect, right? We know how to adapt. Because we blend, and that's kind of one of the motivations for creating this podcast, being transnational. Like we navigate and moving back and forth between both worlds. We have a bridge, and we have the ability to be able, like, we jump in and we vibing with African Americans. We know how to we understand the language, the history, we know the culture. And when we get to our house, we're also like, good evening, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, mommy.
All
types of,
yeah, and so we have this ability to be able to create two different types of stories for ourselves, right?
Sure.
We have a different, you know, narrative when we with our peoples, our homies, and it can and even with the cousins, like the cousins relate because y'all
For
going
sure.
through the same type of experience together because of course this your cousin is your aunties, that's your auntie and your mommy, and so you're going through the same, like, okay, what's auntie talking about it, what's your
Right.
mom
For
like,
sure.
so you know,
And I
so
think there is one part that I would say that later on that I didn't really understand until I rock with more American Nigerians than Nigerians who who are from Nigeria. I would say
ooh,
because I
talk to
think
me about
they
that.
understand. Like, I don't know if it's an understanding or just a familiarity of, all right, you from here, you know the similar experience of like, all right, how I gotta be at home versus how I'm in school, and you kind of adapt. When when I talk to some people directly from Nigeria, it's like, why are you acting different? I'm this way all the time, like regardless, like accept me regardless. So even when I was coming to like U of I was trying to like size the people up, like, all right, what type of Nigerian are you? Like, were you raised here or not? Like, it's still different. Like, am I gonna relate to you the same type of way? So I know that's something that I've noticed with myself. I do relate to Nigerians who were born here more than Nigerians back at home.
Now, you know, that's an interesting perspective that has never been brought up in this podcast in terms of the inner
Difference.
interactions
Yeah.
between just Nigerians alone, right? Or even like let's say West Africans, we'll include Ghanaians too, like, but
Yeah.
and you know, the others, but like that idea of, okay, well, are you from here? Are you born
Yeah.
here? And if you're from here, you shall understand the struggle of having to balance the culture, your cultural experience, where the ones that are, you know, Nigerians would say Johnny just come, but like, you know, the fresh off the plane, you know,
So,
Nigerian, they come in and they're like, this is me, and their accent is still the thickest
yeah.
and strongest, right? They don't want to code switch.
Exactly.
They're talking American talk,
Yeah.
the other yama yama stuff. And it's so interesting because now I'm thinking about it and I'm reflecting, those Nigerians tend to find the ones that are just like them too, that are super fresh, and they all kind of stay authentic together.
Exactly. Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I say here some of the more ratchet ones, stick together here, So I
Right.
often found, so it's cool, man. I would say, like, I always loved my history and my native background. It's just, even I went back for the first time in 2019. It was just in terms of curiosity, never really shied away for it. Now the Yoruba aspect of like my it's one of those things of like, maybe I should have took it a little bit more seriously growing up. But it's everybody. I found out everybody
You're not alone.
struggles.
Even
Yeah.
me, bro. Like me, I was born there, bro. Like my mom speaks it. You know what I mean? Like and I came here at a young age, and I understand it. But the thing about Yoruba, specific, like, and I struggle with, because I have the Yoruba and the Igbo that I have to like, and I don't speak neither. I probably speak Yoruba a little bit more, but the thing about Yoruba is that Yoruba is a language that requires, one, like, confidence. You have to
Yes.
have confidence because, like, we're very animated. So if you're saying like, if you're saying certain words, you have to be able to like emphasize certain parts of the word. And
Right.
if you're not confident in it, you know what I'm saying? Like if you want to say akuro less, like if you want to say one of those words, like, kokoro mida, like if you're talking about where's my keys, like you're saying those things, you have to have confidence. And if you don't feel like you've been practicing enough,
you're just not going.
don't say it.
Yeah, you're not gonna
And
say it. Exactly.
that was my issue, where it's like I read it, I even can read a little bit of it, whatever, but I didn't get enough practice
For
with
sure.
anyone to be able to feel confident. And so I'm not gonna say nothing. Like I'm just gonna
Exactly.
translate in English
For
what's
sure.
happening.
Yeah.
So,
And that's kind of how I'm moving out. It's just like, yeah, I can't speak it. It is what it is. It's just part of life. Yeah.
You good, man. And it's never too late. I mean, I'm still trying to figure out a way. I mean, if not me, at this point, I'm like, if not me, my kids. So I want my kids to still get the experience.
I will say, you act about shied away. That's probably the only thing that my mom has ever said. The dating aspect, not a you can't, but a preference. And I understand.
Okay.
Yeah. That's the only thing to like keep the. She was just like, apparently it's like when elders get older, they revert back to their original language. And she was saying, she's been talking about this lately, like, yeah, it would be nice to someone who knows the culture and can understand me when I get that old and can take care of me the proper way. So she's been throwing that in there, but never been like my brother is married to someone black, and we love her, we've always accepted her and everything like that. But it's always been like, if you happen to date somebody Nigerian, I would love it type thing. You know?
Just throw that subliminal, subliminal disclaimer in there. Yeah, man. You know, that's interesting because that obviously for me, being married to an African American, that was one of the things that you would hear from, like, of course, you're not random, but your usual, your aunties will throw that in there when they're trying to ask about your dating life and say, "Oh, don't do this." And truth be told, it was something that was very important when I started really getting serious about getting married to my wife, Wanda. It was like, how well you really gonna take me and my culture, because I'm coming with it, and it's a package. And the thing for her was like, it was a little bit of a handicap in sense of I already knew the vibes for the African American culture. Right? So I knew how to blend in. So if I'm coming to your mom's and pass out, I can talk that talk. We could talk civil rights. We could talk about being Black in America. I knew the struggle. That's the advantage I have for being able to. We talk about being able to navigate both worlds. That I was able to come in and be able to. I already understand how they relate to you.
Right.
Like, you want to come to my house?
Yeah,
you want to come to my house? Okay, let's slow down.
It's something that is not talked about enough in terms of what my aunties and I wouldn't say uncles. No, it's more like aunties. It's like you got to prove yourself that you not one of the ones that they already think you are, and it's so unfortunate, man. It is, man. But it's very real. But this is like why I always say my family and is like one of the special circumstances, because my peoples act like that, but at the end of the day, that may be off rip, but it's never going to be like we never really accepted it. Like, I always say, I really only rock with Nigerians that I know, because even being Nigerian, sometimes you gotta prove yourself to other Nigerians, and I'm like, I hate having to do that. So like, I'm very confident who I am, so I'm not going to be in a space where I'm getting eyes and looks and judgments. So I can only imagine if someone you like dating and you taking seriously, if they have to constantly prove themselves to, people who are supposed to be family. I've been lucky enough to, like, my family don't really move like that. And we'll call you out on it too, honestly, because it's like, come on now, like, I understand, but like, especially being like Christ bound, like, that's not Christ like at all. So yeah, man, it's cool, man.
Yeah,
for sure.
So now back to the let me ask a couple questions before we get into the book. Favorite Nigerian food?
Of course.
Pounded yam.
Yeah, man. Well, you what do what? Man? You what do? It gotta be.
What you said?
Yeah, man.
Okay.
And then two meats. I don't really do it with goat meat.
No, I don't play with. I don't do the goat meat. The goat meat. Thing about, I'm sensitive about goat meat in terms of, like, I gotta trust who make it. Now, if it's the OG that make it, for sure.
I ain't gonna lie. Sometimes if he's stinking, I don't
know. Goat meat get just what I'm saying, bro. Like, goat meat, depending on who prepare it, bro, it can get a little wild. Like, it can get a little gamey. And I ain't, so give me the beef, give me the steak, you know what I'm saying? Throw those two meats, the vibes, and then we good. I'm very, I would say I'm not traditional, but me, I'm an Eba kind of guy, right?
Okay.
So Eon's been growing on me. Not gonna lie, Eon's been growing on me, but give me some Eba.
I would say it's 3. Eon's 1. Jollof rice is so basic to say, but
it's the go-to,
it's bro. The go-to, man. So it gotta be in the top 3.
Yeah.
And I haven't had it in a while, but it makes me think about childhood. Gari.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. That, yeah. The one in the bowl, not the
the one in the bowl, bro. Like, I don't know what it's so simple, but it's smack. It's smack.
Get you some. I just had some a couple days ago. It's still hit. It's mandatory. I got to get my kids. My kids got to understand what that's like. Soaking gari and taking it with a little sugar in it.
Oh yeah, yes sir. Yes sir.
Yeah, matter of fact, man, I gotta do a show at some point where I gotta I gotta ask some Africans. It doesn't just have to, maybe Nigerian specific, but just in general, like some West Africans that I want to know what your top 5, like what's your Mount Rushmore of like African food. Like I gotta get one of
You
those.
know what I haven't had though, and I think it's just been because I don't be eating a lot of people food. Asaro, never had asaro.
Oh, you
Never,
haven't? You've
never.
never had porridge?
Someone just asked. No, someone just asked me. It was like, yeah. I was just like, nah. I have moi moi before, but never asaro. So
Oh
that's
my
probably
God.
yeah.
Porridge, bro. Porridge is decent.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's one of those where I'm not gonna hold you where like I'm not gonna say it's a delicacy, but I'm gonna say like it's not one that you want to eat all the time, right?
Okay.
Like, if you eat it, you eat it. It's an occasional dish.
Does it usually go with fish?
Yeah, it go
That's
with
why.
it go
That's
well with
why I
fish.
don't eat.
It go
I
with
don't.
fish.
I
You don't
don't
eat
eat
fish like that?
I don't eat seafood. So that's probably why I've never had it.
Okay, yeah, go
Yeah.
with fish. Most people put some fish in there and everything. So
Gotcha.
you don't need it, but it's like you can have it without it. But like, yeah, asaro is For people who don't know what asaro is basically like yam porridge.
Mm-hmm.
And so I used to have some when I was a shorty. My mom used to make it, but it wasn't a regular meal. It was like this special Sunday. Like if it was an occasional Sunday meal, one of those, you know how you have those like Sunday dinners and after
Yeah.
it was one of those dishes you make on a Sunday night dinner and everybody come together, families here, you dishing it. It wasn't something like you would eat just
All the time.
casually. Nah.
You know a funny story?
What?
A reason why I don't eat seafood is my mom used to serve us the fish head, and that joint used to be looking at me consistent, traumatic, man.
Traumatic.
So then one brother stopped eating fish, like, yo, I don't like this, the texture. I was like, I never really liked it either. And then she was just like, all
You
right,
had
I'm
the
not
eyes in them joints?
Yeah, man. Yes, sir. In the whole fish stew, like I'm like, nah.
Your mom is legitimately
legit for sure.
Everybody, the whole part of this fish you will eat,
Yeah,
like
bro,
from head to tail.
like,
Nah, bro, my mom used to be on there with the fish head. Like, hey, some people would like swear by it. I'm like, gee, I don't want no fish looking at me as I cut through it. I'm
exactly.
good. Give me the rest of the
So I
part.
think that texture, smell, I was just like, I ain't rocking with no seafood at all. Yeah.
My experience with fish is really because like when I was a kid, I choked on a bone.
Oof.
So that was traumatic for me. And then but then I've started to get like the fish, like I started getting back to like salmon, especially when I was on like when I got into like my healthy stuff. I started really eating healthy and clean. Like then I really got into like, trying to get my protein and all that. So started really getting back into like salmon.
You know the trick, right?
No, what's the trick?
You eat bread.
No.
Yeah, when it gets stuck, that's a very common thing. Maybe it's a very common thing in African culture. So yeah, it used to happen with my brothers. You should just take a slice of bread, and because it's so thick, it'll take it down.
Bro, that's a hack.
Yeah.
Like that's a life hack. I wish I knew that when I was a shorty.
Yeah.
It would have definitely stopped me from. I used to hate. I feel like almost like 10 years I didn't eat fish. I just But anyway, so yeah, man. So in the process of everything, your upbringing and all that, you wrote a book that really was, I mean, I remember seeing you on a WGN and you was all over when you dropped this book. And I wanted you to talk to us about what inspired the book, and just everything that you plan to do with it and go now and beyond.
Yeah. So, background.
Yeah.
I've always wanted something to be passionate about outside of work. So I'm a corporate dude. I work for United Airlines in terms of like finance and analytics. And people be having a real estate, people be having like their you got your podcast. Right. Like everybody got a podcast. You was one of the OGs, shout out to you.
Appreciate you.
Like everyone just kind of has that, some even like just like a small business with like t-shirts.
Yeah.
Or homie, some people got tequilas like a homie. And I just always wanted something, but I'm not going to just dive in just because I'm not a follower at all. So if it didn't feel like authentic, I just wasn't going to do it. My pastime is like sports or in the gym, always hooping, always playing like flag football or working out. So this was something like I was really praying about with the Lord. I started taking my faith seriously about 2 years ago. And I was just praying about like, man, I want something outside of work that I can be passionate about and like put some effort into. So I saw a TikTok about someone creating a children's book using ChatGPT. So I
What?
saw it. Yeah, like they was basically like, yeah, start asking it very normal questions, how they would do it, how they would write it, writing original stories and everything like that. And I was like, if it's that easy, I wonder if I could do it. But
Mm.
I didn't want it to just be a normal children's book. So I literally went to sleep,
Mhm.
woke up with the idea, money, faith, fiction, and finance. Boom, wrote that
Mm.
down. And I was like, if I don't do this, I'm gonna lose it.
Mhm.
Um, so literally just went down, it was like during Christmas break, went down a rabbit hole of just like writing characters, write what it be about. And I kind of used like Chat GPT to guide me, like what makes a children's book good? What makes it unique? What would the original story be about? Like, um, how would it resonate with the audience? And then I had all like the bones of it.
Mhm.
And then I kind of used it to like, all right, I want the story to be this way about two African Americans who are friends, who are interested in finance, the age group between 6 and 8, original story. I went through writing styles, like if it was written like, and like my favorite authors like Langston Hughes, or if it was written in just like terms of it can be explained to a 5-year-old, all these different versions. And I settled on this one. And
Okay.
then I just got the plot. And then after that, I was like, okay, I got the story. How am I gonna put this into a book? So then I started watching YouTube videos,
Mhm.
and then something called Amazon KDP is Kindle Direct Publishing. So you could just upload
Mhm.
your individual story. You got to have a cover page and like illustrations and everything like that, and they'll take care of all of the publishing distribution. And everybody knows Amazon. So I was like,
Mhm.
all right, I got the story, I got how I'm gonna publish it. I need this joint illustrated.
Mhm.
I was like, I
Mhm.
love drawing, but I'm like, this is gonna be professional. So I went on Fiverr. I ain't gonna lie. So
Okay.
went on Fiverr, saw some individuals who specialized in African American illustrations, and
Mhm.
I just kind of saw their sample work, and I settled on this one person who specialized in kids. And I ain't gonna lie, her first couple iterations, they looked more Indian than African American, so we had to make some changes and things like
Yeah.
that. But we finally settled on the final version, and then in about a month and a half, I had a book, and I was like, "Yo, I just wrote a book. It's crazy."
Yeah.
So yeah, it kind of happened by accident, and then when I wrote the story, it was just speaking from the heart, like why I wrote it,
Mhm.
dedicated to my father. So I lost my father at 6 years old, and his name was David. So that's how I chose the name David,
Mhm.
out of David and Amani. And Amani means peace. I have
Mhm.
a peace of mind anytime I'm financially stable. So that's what a word name Amani came. And it
Mhm.
was learning about money, real simple naming. And so everything has a meaning behind in the book. And I
Mhm.
think that's why it resonated with so many people, because I ain't trying to make bread off it, nothing like that. I just literally was like, I wonder if I could do this. And then it went down a rabbit hole of like, okay, if I do it this way and I make it authentic, maybe people will rock with it. And then I ended up on the news. It was
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, bro. Listen, you said it was an accident, bro. That wasn't no accident, bro. You prayed on that joint.
Yeah,
You talk about waking up with something instilled in your spirit, man, and you turn
yeah,
that spirit to action. You talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
what God, talk about what God can do.
For sure, man. For
I
sure,
mean,
man.
you talking, you get you. I know you giving a story, but bro, that also looked like it sounds so much like a testimony to me.
For sure, man.
Real. You know what I'm saying? And that is that's amazing. Like I said, I was so proud. I saw it. I was like, wait, hold
Yeah.
on. I could
Yeah.
have sworn. I could have sworn this man. I was like, what is this?
Yeah.
What?
Came out of nowhere. Yeah.
Man,
Yeah.
it's been amazing. And so like now, I mean, dedicating that to your pops, I mean, just the whole idea. And so how has it been just being able to say, okay, you've authored this book? Have you, you know, how is it? How are the young kids in your life? How have they
Yeah.
responded to seeing this book and
So
reading it? And how
the
does that
best
feel?
the best part has been nieces and nephews. So I got 6.
Yeah.
Seeing them see like my uncle did this and having a copy and like reading it, and like my brothers and sisters send me the pictures. That was like time, like that was priceless. Honestly, that's been the best part. Like the money is cool. Like I ain't gonna lie, make it's listed at like 13, I believe. I make $4 off the book. Amazon take a lot of this, but it's cool. It wasn't about the cash.
They do the work, yeah.
They did the work. So, but the impact in church, they bought a whole bunch of copies. They put in a curriculum. The
Mm,
kids like in my life have a copy, and it's like, oh man, I could be an author. That's one thing that when I was a shorty, I didn't think I could write no book, so even being inspirational to the kids, that's been like the biggest thing. And then one thing that I've noticed from this process, I'm a social guy, but I don't like attention. So a lot of attention came fast, and I was like, "Oh, this is too much."
Yeah.
So now it's kind of slowed up. Now I'm starting to like push it a little bit to like some schools, or like some my cousin want to do a book reading at her at my one of my other cousins, like elementary school. So now I'm starting to get involved. Initially, it was too much. Like people trying to pull me in different directions, and I'm just like, "Yo, I didn't do this for all of that. I just did it because one, I just wanted to, and just wanted to put something out that I think I could do it." And it might just be because I'm not used to all that attention. But now I think I'm gonna start like publish. So I got on Amazon and started like paying for some advertisement and things like that. So yeah, now it's one of those. It's starting to take off a little bit more again. But initially it was like skyrocketed, kind of plateaued, and I was kind of like, all right, let me see it. And I might write another one too.
Yeah, man. Looking forward to when you do write another one. So what does it feel like? I mean, I'm sure, of course, like being on the news and then getting the immediate, like hype and a rush of attention, and everybody's kind of just rolling off the momentum or the wave of you being, really getting a lot of attention for the great work that you did. But like, so now when you think about financing and growing up in an growing up in an African household, but then living in the African American world, or just the American world as a Black man, how have you been able to use or discuss financing and wealth with your African side, and maybe even with like some of your African American friends? How have you been able to navigate both cultures while talking about money? Because our people and how we go about it is
Yeah, great question, G. So the foundation came from my mom made us feel like we was broke. Like, and at one point, I really feel like maybe not like poverty, but we was close. Like 5 kids, 55,000. I don't know how she did it,
man.
And then nursing, you get like that raise, and eventually it was decent. But she instilled us is like, if it's not a necessity, don't ask. So I always had this thing of just like, whatever I have, I'm gonna hoard it. So like, dancing at parties, getting sprayed. That was how I bought Sonic Adventure 2 when I was a kid for Dreamcast, So I'm gonna be real like strategic. I'm gonna get this money, I'm gonna do this with it. And that's kind of how I've always been. But like even the principles of just like getting what you have, saving it for the future, and like having a budget with that money of just like, all right, I gotta have this amount. I can't spend all of it on just like candy and everything. Like gave me like financial discipline. Um, and then like later on, college, um, worked like 20 hours a week, $10, but that's all I had. Rent was super cheap because U of I was super cheap in U of I, like but
Sweet.
I had to make $200 stretch outside of rent for the whole month. And I wasn't just in the house, I was kicking it, I had books and everything like that. So it was water, diner hall meals and nothing else. I would eat Chipotle. That would be my only thing on Friday, just real frugal. But then when I got cash, it was I got my first job out of college. It was one of those things of, I like nice things, but I'm not going to splurge. So I'll be one of those people who like step out with something nice, but then you won't see me going out. But I'm a very generous dude. Everything is always like calculated. Like, all right, if I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna spend this amount of money, and you ain't gonna see me for X amount of time. It's all very calculated.
Put in
Even
this $200. You ain't
yeah,
see me. It's $100 a week. That means you
yeah,
ain't see me for 2 weeks.
2 weeks. You know. So it's always really just been like that. And then even with like friends, it's like I always have this thing of just like, okay, if I take care of someone gonna have it the next time. So then I ain't gonna, have to spend it all. Because one thing I know about cash and like biblical principles, it's all interrelated. I think that's another part of the book that I didn't touch on. Um, I didn't know so much money principles, biblical principles about money was in the Bible. So, not like even not spending all that you have, that's in scripture. Not giving you shall receive is in scripture, um, being charitable is in scripture, all these different things. And I always just had something in me to be like, this is the right thing to do. But the blessings that come with it is something that people don't necessarily resonate with. So all of these different things in terms of like the African principles, and that's like mom setting the foundation intentionally and not intentionally, because showing the frugal side, but also making us think about like don't spend all you have, but also we was kicking it. You can have a good time with your money too.
Yeah.
I think those are great. And then I guess like a little bit more of like outside of the household, just like it's like you can't take it with you. I have a good time, but within reason. And then and recently with my faith in terms of the biblical principles of what I live by. So those three, I would say.
Yeah, no, that's real, especially just being able to, when you think about how, for me, like even now growing up, what I know about money, now, and like the understanding the difference between having money and having wealth,
Mm.
like is, and that's something that in our community, I feel we still, I mean, our generation and coming after, I think we have a better understanding. There's so many of the homies now, right, that have, I mean, shout out to like Jeff Osuji and
Mm-hmm.
Jeff Badu and them, like just who, they're owning real estate. Even Wale, right? Shout out to
Yep.
Wale, shout out to my mentee Wale, right? Who
Mm-hmm.
bought his own building, doing this thing there, right? You see a lot of us now are in that.
Yep.
And I think about our OGs and our parents, and it's just like, okay, they didn't get that. They did what they did, 55,000 to make sure we can eat so that we
Mm-hmm.
can get to this point, right? The sacrifice. But then it's like, man, even at this stage in their lives, like, how can we still get them to be able to still?
So my mom got like this. So I know God is amazing. She just paid off her crib 2
Wow.
weeks ago.
Oh, wow.
Last 3,500.
Congrats.
So the crib in Masson is paid for. That's generational wealth right there.
Yeah.
So that you know you know whenever that time does, cause that'll be something that stays in the house, or just used in terms of wealth, in terms of a transfership. But like she understood that, like if I leave nothing, I'm gonna leave this house for my kids, and that's
Right.
always a great head start.
Yeah.
Um, and I would say, just like Africans knowing the value of items they purchase, so Toyota cars, you
Oh,
know, like stuff like that. Like I will never
yeah.
buy an American car. No disrespect,
Oh,
but
true.
like I'm not
Good
gonna
day.
spend my money on maintenance, because I'm gonna
Today.
make my money stretch long. And all of these little things that are like, like, man, it ain't that deep. No, it is,
Yeah.
because I got friends who are driving Benzes, and they be like, or BMWs, and they don't know what they're getting themselves into. When you have it, cool, but just know what you buying.
Yeah,
So
no.
me, I got me a little Infinity. It's still one of those luxury cars, but it
It's right
ain't.
in between
It
there.
right in between.
Trust me.
You can still use Nissan parts.
Yep.
Still like nice things, but within reason. So
Yep.
yeah,
Yep. Hey,
that's what it is.
Saint, bro, I'm telling you, it's so interesting you bring that up, because like it was very similar for me in terms of when it came to when I was in U of I, bro. I was like, I had like two Beamers. I was in there like, and I remember but then I was by myself, but by the time I started really getting into growing my family, I think about, oh, this maintenance, like
Mm-hmm.
paying for BMWs, gee.
Yeah.
Like I was like, and I got I was like two of them. I was like, this doesn't make any sense.
All right.
At this point, I started to, and I got mature. We building a family. I got my, I have my baby girl already, and then my son. By the time Jadena was getting ready to be born, by the time before pandemic hit, I was like 2018. I still have my X5, and I just remember telling myself like, yo, like if this X5 break down now, because I'm sitting, I want to do BMW boys. The time I sit and look, if this BMW break down now, my son is in the car. What have I proved?
All right.
Like now I got to sit here, and am I gonna shell out $8,000 to fix something when I can easily get me a car that used Toyota parts?
Mm-hmm.
At that time, I told myself, I said, listen, I ain't doing that. It was fun.
It
I
was
was like, it
fun.
was fun when he was young bachelor, whatever.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, at this point, man, I'm finna go flip this BMW. I think I sold that car. That car was so good to me. I sold that thing. I just got it. It was like $900. Whoever wanted to take it.
Right.
I don't need the stress. It was because the headache was so much.
Mm-hmm.
And then even my other one, I gave it to my brother, and he at some point he got tired of the maintenance of it. And he was like, I just when I moved back to Chicago, I just had to have somebody tow it and get it for parts, and they just gave the money to my mom, like do it, whatever.
What you want with it?
I got me a Lexus because I
How
was
you do it?
Toyota
Little
parts.
parts.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and bro, to this very day, I bought this car in 2018. No, I bought this car 2019, right before right when my wife was pregnant with Jadena. And bro, to this very day, I haven't had not one issue. Like I haven't had not one, like not one. The only thing has been oil change, bro.
Changes,
That's
yeah.
it. Like I haven't had no issues. No, that BMW, bro. Every 2 months, bro, it was
Yeah.
like the light was on, this was on, that was on. Need this
Yeah.
part, this part. It was nice and flashy. Don't get me wrong. It's like one of those things where you like, oh, this person cute on the
Mhm.
outside, but they got lots of
It's
issues on the
it's
inside.
one thing about like this lifestyle that I've, and in terms of like financial literacy, we got the Instagram, we got the cars, we got the trips and everything. It's all good until you check that bank statement. It's
Yeah,
all good, man. It's not worth it. It's definitely one of the things. Live within your means, have a good time, but there's ways to do it, just being financially responsible. I'm definitely one of those people who, you know, I'm an advocate for smart spending. There's some people who are like super savers. Like they save 70% of their check, they eat, they coupon everything. And I'm not that guy. I can't be that guy. Like I don't want to be eating, noodles every night. I can't do it. But like I understand why, because they're trying to get financial for it. But it's about, limiting certain things so you can get where you want to be financially. That financial freedom is a peace of mind, man.
yeah,
And
man. Yeah, I definitely want that for a lot of our parents, older, for especially for like the Africans here. Really hoping that, because one of the things that I'm aiming for, like my own personal work, is I'm really trying to get us to the point where a lot of African immigrants come to the States, and like your mom seeing, my mom seeing, everybody else, they come in, they grind. And then one of the things is like, and maybe it definitely differs. Everybody's different depending on the age too. But like one of the things that I always ask myself is, okay, you're here in the country. Are you surviving or are you thriving?
mm,
And so the thing about it is that a lot of us, especially our African immigrants, come in and they just survive.
hmm
And by the time it's like, but I feel like there's so many resources out there that we don't take advantage of. Like I should say, they don't take advantage of enough, that it would allow them to thrive at an earlier age, where it's like, okay, you understand financial literacy, how to handle your money, how to invest, right?
hmm
All these other things where, sometimes like I don't know whether it speaks for your situation, but like for mine, like you have family at home where he's like, oh, well, but I put this money in the bank, or do I just send this
send it out.
you
Oh God.
know what I'm saying? Like, or do
See,
I send this to Nigeria? And and that's the struggle that they have to deal with. But it's
deal
like
with.
being able to figure out, how do you say, okay, well, I can invest this amount of, like you said, smart spending, smart allocation, and being able to understand how to generate wealth that could help them, maybe not help this person now that you're trying to save and feed, but how do you help yourself 10 years from now so that you can pay that house off, be able to know that, okay, this house now I can be able to have generational wealth for not just like my kids, but my kids' kids, blah, blah, blah. And so really getting us to a stage where we can, and I think that's something like what you're doing and what I hope like other, people from our generation is doing, is trying to put ourselves in the position where we can start allowing our ourselves and maybe our even our successors to thrive in this country. Because
hmm
I think other immigrant communities, when you look at them, man, like, bro, like why, I mean, maybe if you want to count Houston, but like I still believe there's so many Nigerians in Chicago and other places like New York. We don't have, and there's so many successful ones, but why don't we have like our own version of a Chinatown? Like,
Yeah,
you
yeah, yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like we can build these communities and have all these resources where we can support and but just understanding how to thrive. And so
hmm
instead of, that's what I mean by thriving. Like we can build our own, every city you go to in this country, and it's no shade to anyone. Like
Right.
they've developed their own, but any major city you go to in the US has a Chinatown.
For sure.
Like, you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? And Nigerians, we're everywhere. Like everywhere, you name it. We should, we have the ability to be able to have these type of mini communities where we have our own
And
type of thing
it's
going.
and it's very possible because we all know where our African store is. We know where African braiding store is. We know where the tailor is. We know these African infrastructural businesses, but they're just kind of scattered.
Right.
And if they were centralized, then they can grow kind of internally and without. And then you start a little town and then the money starts to circulate. Maybe
Yeah.
you get an African owned bank, all
Yeah.
these different things, maybe a small like shelter or just like a hospital. Like anything. Like they got urgent cares anywhere. One could be African Star, you know.
That's what I'm saying. And that's what I'm saying, bro. Like we got so many of us that are, you're in finance. Other of us who are like, you got people that are dentists, that are lawyers, that are, engineer. You know, all our parents asked us to be these things. So you already know.
My mom ain't always pay for school. That's a hilarious story. My mom was like, "You going to be an engineer?" I was like, "Nah, I ain't good in physics. I ain't going. I'm gonna do money. I'm gonna do finance." She was like, "I ain't signing financial aid unless you be an engineer." Yo, my brother had to talk to my mom for 2 days. It's like, man, if he know what he want to be good at, let him go. And my mom was not going. Like, no, I know engineering is safe. It's either engineer or healthcare field. It's those two. And eventually she folded. And I always like joke around. I was like, see what happened if when you listen to your kid. I know what I'm doing. It was just one of those things. I think our parents didn't ultimately invest because they identified it as too risky. They always want the best for themselves and their loved ones. So, and even like sending money back to Nigeria, it's like, all right, I can put this into, stocks. What else? Your credit score, all that wasn't visible 25 years ago. So it's just like, when it's like, mommy, you should put your money here. He's like, you're trying to scam me. You're not really trying to help me. Exactly. And in fact, the person who was doing it all this time is probably like really got money right now. And then they saying like, oh, I should have listened to him. It was the fear of the unknown and having some survivor's guilt of just like, look, man, all my money is now I'm gonna give it to church. Maybe I put a little bit away, and then I'm gonna ultimately help my family because they helped me get here. And now it's one of those things of like, all right, information is so visible. We've seen other people who look like us do it. And it's one of those things our parents gave us enough cushion to, try these things. Because I hate to say it, worst case scenario, I don't want this to happen. If I lost my job, everything happened, I could go home. It won't be no problem. Like, and my mom would happily love me that allow me to take more risk. Try different things. Scare money don't make money. But yeah, it's one of those, I don't have that pressure of like, I ain't got nowhere to go. Right. So in their own way, they kind of just projected us forward. And I know if they could have done it differently, they would have. But honestly, they just happy to see the next generation of kids succeed.
Yeah, and to me, that's kind of that's what I mean by like the sacrifice, right? Like they crawling so we can run and fly, what I mean? And so that's kind of how I look at it, where it's like, well, I wish I could still do something, and that's why I still work to try to do something for that generation, just to honor the sacrifice and still give them a way to enjoy the golden years, right, as they're getting older. Because a lot of, we're at this stage now, you start to see your parents, you're like, man, they're getting old, man. You want to enjoy that. I don't know about you, but for me, when I see my family, I'm like, man, I want them to enjoy. Right? Like at this stage, I don't want my mom to be working. Like I want her to enjoy life and enjoy the golden years that she has going on, and be able to, fly in style. But like, I think what you said as far as that survivor's guilt and that idea of the fear of the unknown is a major factor that I think, sometimes we tend to overlook, is that like, we were at a stage where back then that didn't seem like a reality because you just didn't know. No one, I think intentionally, they didn't try to educate, Black people, as you get to talk Black immigrants about money management, because that wasn't gonna really, of course you came here to work, so work, right? Like, don't learn about this wealth, how to grow wealth. That's not for your type of people. And so it's good to kind of see the strides that we've made, and I hope that we can continue to just like try to make more strides. And so like the book and everything is going well. Like I said, that's awesome. So let's shift gears a little bit. You're big on sports, right?
Ooh, big in the NBA.
Let's get into it real quick before we start to wrap up. So what type of sports you into? What do you
big in boxing and big in the NBA? The NBA, NBA is basically my life. I ain't gonna lie.
You sure?
Yeah, man. It's okay. One of those, like, I know trade rumors. I know free agency. I know, I knew the playoffs is something in terms of the seeding and like which games matter more than what, how many road games, divisions, everything. Like, I'm a historian with it as well. Mostly 90s and 80s, but anything before that is like, yeah. But like all of like just like the smaller players that you could think of.
Okay.
It's like the Peja Stojakovic's, the old Mitch Richmonds, all these things. Like I just love basketball. I even I was thinking about like the generations of like when I watched basketball, I think call it the golden years when you had like the 2000 when you saw like Kobe and them, and we used to really not have all of these highlights, but also it was like still tough basketball like the 90s. So like I think like 2000s basketball is like by far the best basketball.
I mean, we talking about NBA on NBC.
See, you know, yeah,
bro. When it comes to sports, this is what I like. If I didn't, that's why I say like I'm big on like sports, so I understand everything you're saying in terms of the NBA. You know, even though when I came from Nigeria, I got here right when I literally, you know, when I moved to Chicago, I thought the city was called Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, it was that thriving.
You know, I came in the country December 97, 98. So I came right when I really started my first introduction to basketball was Jordan, Bulls, Pacers, right? You know, watching all games. I didn't understand what the hell was happening. I just wanted to know like Michael Jordan was scoring, and it'll continue to, you know, grow in the sport. You know, then of course me loving history as well, start to look back, really understand like 80s, you know, how Magic.
I can argue the Jordan LeBron thing every day. Legit. Like it's like, and I have no type of like.
In terms of which side?
Oh, the Mike for all day for sure. Yeah, all day.
I'm LeBron.
Oh man,
I love. Don't get me wrong. I understand Mike. I understand Mike and what Mike did, but if I was riding for anybody, I'm with LeBron. And of course, you know, RIP to Kobe. We know Kobe.
For sure. Yeah.
But like for me, when it came to like basketball, I liked Jordan, but I really was a Pippen fan.
Really?
Loved Pippen. I love Pippen because Jordan got the credit.
Yeah.
But like, Pippen was I love defense. You know what I mean? And maybe because when I played basketball, like I was trash. Like on the court, I rebound and steal. Like I like rebound and defense. So that's when I appreciate like Dennis Rodman, right? Like a dude that's like 6'7", grabbing 20. It just he did incredible stuff. And you're talking about a time where, you know, like you said, the NBA was tougher, right?
Yeah.
More, you know, they allowed a lot more to happen, elbows, and you know what I'm talking about. You're talking about dude that's 6'7", 6'8", like barely. Probably James Rodman probably shorter than that, honestly, like 6'6", 6'7", grabbing 20 rebounds with Karl Malone and Anthony Davis and Dale Davis. Like you had these. Not Anthony Davis. Was it not Anthony? It was Antonio Davis. Antonio Davis and Dale Davis, the Davis brothers, when they were with the Pacers, and you had the Knicks with Patrick Ewing. He was going toe for toe. So like it was crazy. And then of course, like you said, 2000 basketball, you had Peja.
Power forward era was amazing.
Teams, the power forward, right? Rashid, Sharif Abdul-Rahim,
Bonzi Wells.
Oh my God, the Blazers. Oh my God, back then,
KG. Bro, like, it was just a time where it was just like every night somebody had something, and it was just hoops. That was when we had the 2 stars. Remember, that's like back then, the NBA in the 2000s, you had at least 2 superstars. You ain't have the big threes, like, you know, LeBron really created. Not LeBron, but like don't talk KG, about it. Talk about it.
But KG and them really started the big 3 thing, right? But in the older age, but like big 3 in a prime, that was definitely LeBron, right? And so, but the idea of like, think about every team back in the 2000s. And I know people who listen to this podcast, they're like, what are we talking about? This what we doing. So if you're tired of it, we can stop here, but we'll get back into it. But anyway, like the teams in the 2000s, we had, you know, think about the two players in Portland. You had Bonzi Wells,
Damon Stoudemire,
right? Then you had and that's kind of what inspired the whole like NBA Jam. You know what I'm talking about? Because you had you could pick at least 2 good dudes, right? And then you know KG, you had
Marbury or Sprewell, one of the 2.
Sprewell, that 2. And you throw in Cassell if you want to put Cassell later on. New York, you had, you know, was this after Patrick Ewing? You had the
you had what's that dude name? Well, Sprewell was on the next 2.
You had the Larry Johnson.
It was so bad for so long. Allen Houston,
Allen Houston, Larry Johnson. And then, with the Spurs, Tim Duncan,
Duncan,
and David
Ginobili,
Robinson,
David Robinson,
yeah,
Ginobili.
Ginobili,
Yeah,
Tony
before
Parker.
Tony Parker came.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, so like these teams, like, and then I think about Charlotte, Baron Davis, and
Davis.
Blackburn. Like, there's so many really like, yeah, bro. Not like the 2000s was fun. I was by then I was still, I was still a Bulls fan, and I was still even when they were trash, bro. Like before D Rose, I mean,
Yeah.
the Ron
Dang.
Mercer days,
The Ron
Eddie.
Artest,
I
Tyson
love.
Chandler.
I was Tyson Chandler, Eddie Curry.
Yeah.
Loved Eddie Robinson for some
Hmm.
reason. Just yeah, those type. I loved hooping too. Like I appreciate about baseball is my number one sport. Like I love baseball. White Sox fan. Just got the notification they lost in it, but anyway, whatever. But yeah, so when it sports was my escape, man. Like sports being we talk about if I was getting into my background, it's like growing up in an African household, like sports was like what got me like out because my people didn't understand sports. They just knew the team. You
Ah,
know what I mean? They didn't understand. My mom was like, she was like, she knew I liked baseball, but she never cared like what that was. Football, I would watch the Bears, like so for me, they just left me alone to like get into like sports, and so I would get
right.
heavy, right? I would, similar to you, like I read like sports like history books and sport
Hmm.
almanacs just to see who had the record for this and
Yeah,
who
yeah.
could score the most points. Like, Wilt Chamberlain scored 100. How do you do that? And then
Right.
actually see Kobe drop 81 was incredible.
I
And
remember that's
now,
because I remember coming to school and like not thinking this was real. So
yeah,
I'm not even gonna lie. Like I ain't watching live. I'm like I had to go to bed, and
yeah,
then the
yeah,
next day, so I see that yesterday. I'm like, huh? And then we talking about it. I'm like, watch highlights. Like, yo, this is crazy. They talking all over ESPN. I remember even just when Allen Iverson got traded to the Nuggets.
oh
It was
yeah,
in I was in
Carmelo,
class. I was like, what is
Carmelo,
happening? Yeah. So it's just always been a part of my life in terms of those lunchroom conversations, getting all the guys together,
yeah.
talking who their favorite player was. I always been decent at hoops, like and like runs, V's, and everything like that. But it was never one of those things of like I knew I was gonna be that guy. It was just one of those like I just love basketball, 2K, talking with the guys,
Yeah.
and watching it honestly. And even now, like I'm getting into that with boxing in terms of like training, like really watching it.
Mhm.
Um, it's like so technical, and then
Oh
like
yeah.
it's one of those like your opinion needs to have fact because it's not
Mhm.
one of those things like I like this dude better. He's a better boxer than like why?
Mhm.
I love conversations that in sports have some credence, not just like emotional ties to it. So I think
Yeah.
basketball and um, boxing have that the most. Football, you kind of born into it a little bit. Like they change so often. So I think that's why I don't really gravitate towards it, even though I love playing it. But the
Yeah, I
fandom
like
of it,
playing too.
yeah, the fandom isn't as much because people are Cowboys fans. I don't know why. I'm like, come on, bro. Like your team is bad.
Yeah, you're
So
born in.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's always been it, and that was like the only thing because my OG was very strict in terms of like going outside when we. It's actually opposite. We were. I think it's PTSD though. Like so, we moved from like South Island Harvey. That's when I lost my dad. So my mom
Mhm.
was very intentional. Like I'm not gonna raise y'all out here without like a man figure in the house because y'all gonna end up getting in trouble. So I'm gonna move y'all to a better suburb and but she was actually more strict in terms of us like going outside. And I think it was just one of those things like outside is dangerous. She lost
Yeah.
my dad in Nigeria. But only way she used to let me like kick it is playing sports. So I was in everything, man. Track, basketball, football, baseball, all
I
that.
wish. Yeah, my
Yeah.
mom wasn't letting me do all of that. I had to sneak and do all of that stuff, man. I had to sneak to try to get into football. Baseball was probably the only sport that she let me play because she knew it was like the contact wasn't too crazy.
Yeah.
Basketball, like I said, basketball was cool, but I had such a weird form. I really just couldn't. My shooting form so off, and I didn't.
Defense, man. Defense, man. It
Defense, yeah.
works.
But so I love, like I said, I love playing like defense. Like I said, I admired watching dudes who played good, good defense. Like I said, Scotty, Bruce Bowen, I can go into even I mean, even now, like dudes like Pat Beverly back in the day
Hmm.
when he was in early Pat Bev.
Raja Bell.
Raja, yeah.
Yeah.
But like dudes who like defense and rebounding, like those are dudes that I really was even like prime Dwight Howard.
So who your squad right now?
My squad right now is still Bulls. I
Still
mean, like
Bulls.
no, well, let me not. I'm a Bulls fan, diehard, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
where I'm at. But if I was not watching the Bulls, I love the Timberwolves.
Love the Timberwolves.
Love the
Okay.
Timberwolves, man. I love Anthony Edwards.
Oh yeah, he a dog, yo.
I love what he stands for, man. He's just fun. He's fun for the league, man. I think his personality and the way he play, he's just a fun. I like
I actually hope he becomes the face of the league instead of like a Ja.
Exactly.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
hope he
I hope he's the face. I think I love Luca.
Okay.
I'm a Luca fan. I'm not a Mavs fan, but I'm a Luca fan.
Yeah.
I still am salty that the Bulls were literally like one. Like I think there was a percentage pick they had, and they just lost it because they were tied with Sacramento, and they for the lottery back then, and I think they just missed it. They had a tiebreaker like coin toss to see who would get the percentage. They
Oh.
lost to Sacramento. Sacramento ended up getting the second pick, and then that's how like they traded. But yeah, I mean, anyway, like we gonna talk a little bit more about this offline, but right now, bro, I just want to ask to kind of wrap things up. So what do you want to be your legacy? I mean, you've done a lot of amazing things now, but I typically ask my guests as we wrap up, what do you want to be a legacy here, for your culture, for your people, whether it's African American, African, whatever it is. How do you want to be remembered at the end?
Man, that's a deep question.
It is.
One, I'll start with faith. I want to be someone who, when people see, they can see a Christ-like man. Mm-hmm. For sure, I'm striving to be that. For sure, like an authentic version of that. Not someone who, walks this way at this part of his life and is inauthentic and this other. I think that's something that that kind of shied me away from faith. Of just like, I know Christians out here wilding, and they not really living this life. I really want to be somebody who understands grace. Like, I'm not perfect, but strive to be Christ-like. That's one part. And the second part is, I would say, just somebody who's authentically themselves in any environment. That's one thing that I kind of strive myself on. You ain't never gonna see me act a certain way for somebody. Like, I am myself in any environment, like it, love it or hate it. And then also just, a loving dude who cool with everybody, but also like is somebody who is dedicated to helping others. Like I love creating spaces with like friends and family that they could just come laugh, chop it up, crack jokes, and leave with a smile on their face. So that's just how I want to be remembered from family, friends, and the people I touch. So I would say those three areas.
Yeah, man. Yeah. That's incredible. That's wonderful. And bro, again, just want to congratulate you again on what you've accomplished so far, and wishing you more to come. Again, sure. Super proud of you, bro. Just how you representing your vibe, representing us, our peoples, and the way you moving forward, and not just as far as your products, but how you moving internally, spiritually. Yeah. And being able to walk that walk and reacclimate yourself, with God, and being able to get into that path, because that's what matters, right? Your spiritual edifice. And so, like, just super proud of you with that, man.
Appreciate it, man.
We need to build that, and whatever we can do to continue to support you here on the podcast, or anything I could do on my end, bro, to be able to help you continue to grow.
Yeah, if you could send out the link, I would really appreciate it, David.
Oh yeah, say less. Yeah, man. Tell people. As a matter of fact, again, name the book and where they can find it, and I'll be sure to send out the link on the feed.
For sure. So yeah, it's David Amani Learn About Money. You can find it on Amazon, both the ebook and the paper copy. Michael Omole, off social media for right now, but when I get back on, it's Mike_in_prime on IG. And yeah, reach out to any time. Authentic dude about anything, and faith, finance, and fiction is one of those things that would inspire the book.
Yeah. Fake finance and fiction. That might end up being the title of this episode, man.
Yeah.
But yeah, bro. Congrats on that. Thank you so much for jumping on the show, bro. And I hope to have you on again when the next book is out and other things we could talk about more, especially with sports, bro.
For sure. All right, bro. Take it easy.